In this video, I'm going to show you the next variation or improvement that you can do to trench or two-person foxhole. Now, first we can look down there. We can see we just got a small space. Now you can see with this direction the improvement. If you haven't figured it out, I was standing on top of overhead cover. Now I think the actual name they have for it is flank overhead cover, because it's on the side of your fighting position or the side of a trench line. Basically, it's a place that you set up that you can shelter from mortars, rockets. You can also climb into them if you make it large enough and use it as a sleep shelter. And that's what I have this currently set up as a sleep shelter. Now, it would be off of a two-person fighting position, but because of space and time, I took a two-man foxhole, cut it in half, and added the shelter on it. Now for construction, you see we got a flap over this. I'm using burlap. You can use a piece of tarp, you can use a blanket, plastic, whatever you have available. Now for support, if you can see it, I'm using long pickets, the garden type. You can also use logs or heavy timbers. If you go logs or timbers, you want them at least 4-inch diameter, preferably longer. Over the top of the supports, I have a tarp as waterproofing. And then over the tarp, I have one layer of sandbags. Now, your overhead cover from the supports up needs to be at least 12 inches. My first layer here, I have sandbags, so that's about 4 to 6 inches, and then the rest of it is compacted earth. I'm using these two sandbags to hold it in place. All total on the overhead cover, I used 16 sandbags, and they're laid out 2 side by side and 1 on the end, and then I reversed that, going from one end to the other down there. Now I highly recommend you revet the sides. I did not have the materials plus time constraints. All I have is the stone and dirt walls, but every time you brush against them, the stuff falls down. So I highly recommend you use some planks, metal, whatever you have available along the sides, and then use posts or pickets to hold it in place. Now those posts, I have one here for support of the roof. I have it right underneath one of the headers. You can use the reinforcement posts here for the headers to also hold in your revetting material if you have it available. Now I had this set up as a sleep shelter or personal shelter. If this is off of a two-person foxhole, one person typically will be on duty in the foxhole at any given time, and one person will have downtime for getting rest. So we got in here personal items. You got your rucksack, some food for making a dinner for 2 people. We had the sleeping mat to provide that separation between the ground and the person on top. You will need a light source inside. It can be a lantern, flashlight, candles, whatever you have available. Down on that end, we have our sleeping bag. Now, every underground position should have an entrenching tool or a shovel inside in case there is a collapse, so that the person inside can dig themselves out, provided they're not crushed. Now, these shelters, you're going to have some personal time. You're not going to be sleeping all the time. So this would be, when you have your downtime, it's a great time to review your training materials. Stuff like your soldier's manual, your TMs, and your FMs. Now, if you do not know what TMs and FMs are, I'm not going to tell you. It's military slang. You can look it up. Now, the length of the position should be long enough for you to lay down inside comfortably and have room at the end for your rucksacks, your weapon, maybe additional ammunition. The width of the position should be greater than shoulder width. Now, my pickets and stuff up there, if I had more, there'd be more pickets in the roof and they'd be closer together. Your headers, I'm using pickets also. If all I had was posts, I'd be using that. But with the headers and our stringers, the pickets, they should go past the edge of the trench at least 6 to 12 inches on each side, past each wall. That way it'll spread out the weight and cut down on the possibility of collapse. And as I mentioned earlier, you should have reinforcing posts to support your headers. Header, stringer. Now, for all my Patriot brothers in the Militia and Patriot movement, always remember, essayons.